30 October. At 9 o'clock, Dr. Van Helsing, Dr. Seward, and I called on Messrs. Mackenzie and Steinkopf, the agents of the London firm of Hapgood. They had received a wire from London in answer to Lord Godalming's telegraphed request, asking them to show us any civility in their power. They were more than kind and courteous, and took us at once on board the Serena Catherine, which lay at anchor out in the river harbour. There, where sat the captain, Donaldson by name, who told us of his voyage. He said that in all his life he had never had so favourable a run.
"Man," he said, "but it made us afeard, for we expected that we should have to pay for it with some rare piece of ill luck, so as to keep up the average. It's no cunning to run frae London to a black sea with the wind ahint ye, as if the Deil himself were blowing on your sail for his ain purpose, and all the time he could not spare a thing. Gin we were high a ship or a port or a headland, our folk followed us and travelled with us, till when after it had lifted and we looked out, the Deil of thing could we see. We ran by Gibraltar without being able to signal, until we came to the Dardanelles and had to wait to get our permit to pass. Whenever we were within hail of aught, at first I inclined to slack off sail and bait about until the fog was lifted. But whiles, I thought that if the Deil was minded to get us into the Black Sea quick, he was like to do it whether we would or no. If we had a quick voyage, it would be no to our miscredit with the owners, or no hurt to our traffic and the old mon who had served his ain purpose, wad be decently grateful to us for no hindering him."
This mixture of simplicity and canon of superstition and commercial reasoning, as Van Helsing has said,
"Mine friend, that devil is more clever than he is thought by some, and he know when he made his match."
The skipper was not displeased with the compliment, and went on.
"When we got past the Bosphorus, the men began to grumble. Some of them, the Romanians, came and asked me to heave overboard a big box which had been put aboard by a queer-looking old man just before we had started frae London. I had seen them spear at the fellow, and put out their 12 fingers when they saw him, to guard against the evil eye. Man, but the superstition of foreigners is perfectly ridiculous. I sent them about their business pretty quick, but it's just after a fog closed in on us, I felt a wee bit as I did on something, though I wouldn't say it was agin the big box. Well, on we went, and as the fog didn't let up for 5 days, I just let the wind carry us, for if the Deil wanted to get somewheres, well, he would fetch it up a rate, and if he didn't, well, we'd keep a sharp lookout anyhow. Sure enough, we had a fair way in deep water all the time, and 2 days ago, when the morning sun came through the fog, we found ourselves just in the river opposite Galatz. The Romanians were wild, and wanted me right or wrong to take out the box and flit it at the river. I had to argue with them about it with a handspike, and when the last of them rose off the deck with his head in his hand, I had convinced him that, evil eye or no evil eye, the property and the trust of my owners were better in my hands than in the river Danube. And they had, mind ye, taken the box on the deck ready to fling in, and as it was marked Galatz by a varna, I thought I'd let it lie till we discharged in the port, and get rid of that together. We didn't do much clearing that day, and had to remain the nicht at Acre. But in the morning, braw and early, and now before sun-up, a man came aboard with an order, written to him from England, to receive a box marked for one Count Dracula. Sure enough, the murderer was one ready to his hand. He had his papers, I read, and glad I was to be rid of the damn thing, for I was beginning myself to feel uneasy at it. If the Deil did have any luggage aboard the ship, I'm thinking it was nae either that same. But it was the name of the man who took it?"
asked Dr. Van Helsing with restrained eagerness.
"I'll be telling you quick,"
he answered, and stepping down to his cabin, produced a receipt signed Emanuel Hildesheim. Bergenstrasse 16 was the address. We found out that this was all the captain knew. So with thanks, we came away. We found Hildesheim in his office, a Hebrew of rather the Adelphi theatre type, with a nose like a sheep and a fez. His arguments were pointed with specie, we doing the punctuation, and with a little bargaining he told us what he knew. This turned out to be simple but important. He had received a letter from Mr. Deville of London, telling him to receive, if possible before sunrise so as to avoid customs, a box which would arrive at Galatz in the Tsarina Catherine. This he was to give in charge to a certain Petrov Skinsky, who dealt with the Slovaks who traded down the river to the port. He had been paid for his work by an English banknote, which had been duly cashed for gold at the Danube International Bank. When Skinsky had come to him, he had taken him to the ship and handed over the box, so as to save porterage. That was all he knew. We then sought for Skinsky, but were unable to find him. One of his neighbors, who did not seem to bear him any affection, said that he had gone away 2 days before, but no one knew whither. This was corroborated by his landlord, who had received by messenger the key of the house, together with the rent due in English money. This had been between 10 and 11 o'clock last night. We were at a standstill again. Whilst we were talking, one came running and breathlessly gasped out that the body of Skinsky had been found inside the wall of the churchyard of St. Peter, and that the throat had been torn open, as if by some wild animal. Those we had been speaking with ran off to see the horror, the women crying out, "This is the work of a Slovak!" We hurried away, lest we should have been in some way drawn into the affair, and so detained. As we came home, we could arrive at no definite conclusion. We were all convinced that the box was on its way, by water, to somewhere. But where that might be, we would have to discover. With heavy hearts, we came home to the hotel to Mina. When we met together, the first thing was to consult as to taking Mina again into her confidence. Things are getting desperate, and it is at least a chance, though a hazardous one. As a preliminary step, I was released from my promise to her.